Hello and welcome to Esther's Gardening Adventures. I'm Esther, and in this week's garden update, I believe this is week 9, I'm going to give an update on how the garden has done. I have been out of town at a retreat and mini road trip for 6 days, and not a full week, but pretty close to it. And I will do separate videos about that trip and some of the things I learned from it, and I will share some of my the images, the photos, and videos I took during the trip. It was a really, really great trip, and I look forward to sharing with you. And it was full of garden stuff, so I'll show you all about that later. But I figured I'd show you how the garden did while I was away. So before I left, there was a heavy rainstorm that gave us about 4 inches, according to my water meter. That gave us about 4 inches of rain. And I came out the morning I was leaving and I watered the plants that didn't look like they were fully watered. I wasn't too worried about them because 4 inches of rain ought to last them 6 days. But I asked my husband to keep an eye on them, and he can look out his window and see the front garden. And they did fine. My mom had offered to come down and water them if needed. They did good. There were a couple of plants that were a little bit saggy when I came home last night, and I gave them some water and they've revived, but not a huge amount of damage or loss, which is really, really comforting. I think probably traveling in June helped instead of in July when it it's super hot and dry. At least it's still damp. There's still rain this time of year. So let's go around and see where things are at. I look forward to showing you how the garden is doing. We definitely have a couple new developments as well that are great ones. So let's go see. I'm going to start off with the sunflower and regular soil tomato beds. If you recall, last time I was here, I cut back some of the branches that were blocking the sun. And we definitely have, I will say that the tomatoes in this bed, well, I don't know how well you can tell, but they have, I twisted it before I left and it was about this tall. So in the week of being gone, in the 6 days of being gone, this tomato plant has definitely benefited from being in the sun. They are now probably hip high on me, most of them. This one isn't quite as much. So that is exciting to me. Now I have this one plant that I did not trellis properly. I don't remember what kind this is. I think it's a Cherokee tomato. I don't know how well you could see. It's growing along the ground and coming up, and it's kind of joining the others. So it'll be interesting to see how they grow. This is probably my most neglected tomato bed. It looks like we have, where did I see it? Aha! Looks like we have a baby fruit. Let's see, this is a Cherokee tomato. So we have a baby fruit, a baby tomato growing over here, which is exciting for me. Let's see what else we have. Oh yes, we have another one. Oh, this is a green zebra tomato plant. Has a couple, so that's new. I think the sun has done these plants. See again. This one, I twisted it before I left, and look how much. That's where I twisted it. Right there was the last time I twisted it. Around this spiral thing. I used this last year on my other bed, and it does a really great job of giving the trunk of the plant a support. It makes it hard as heck to pull out of the ground at the end of the year, but it works really well for this period. These are marigolds that I grew from seeds I saved last year. This plant, let's see, what's this one? This is why I keep these things next to it. This is a Abe Lincoln tomato. Looks like it needs maybe some more nutrition. It's got some spots on it. I'm gonna remove some of these leaves. You know, I usually do a pretty good job of pruning tomatoes. This bed, I have not been aggressively pruning, and we definitely have some offshoots like this. One of these two down here were obviously something I did not prune. And before I left for my trip, the sunflowers were really bending, and I was worried that they could get damaged in a storm. So I put some bamboo poles up and tied it with these twist ties. I tried to make it loose enough it wouldn't hurt them. You may have noticed, but cicadas are pretty much gone. This one is still alive. Just saw him move. But if you listen, you'll hear there's no cicada noises really in the background like before. That whir is gone. And luckily, I don't really smell anything bad. I've heard that it can smell like roadkill. Even more exciting is the seeds, come on, hold still, forming in our sunflower. It's doing wonderfully. And this is the first year growing sunflowers that actually produce seeds. These are autumn beauty sunflowers. Are you the last of the cicadas, like the last of the Mohicans, Mr. Cicada? And it looks like this sunflower is starting to form a bud. Also for this bed, before I left, I finally planted up the yarrow. Look, it's doing really well. That I had grown from seed and had in a solo cup for way too long. There's another one over there. And then I planted the columbine here before I left. So they all seem to be doing really well. I have left the fence up for now because I don't know what critters will eat them. Probably at some point I'll feel safe enough to take this fence away because it'll look much prettier on this bed without it. Next up, I'll give an update on this bed. Now, I haven't done any weeding since I came back. This is an update on, this bed is for chamomile and alyssum flowers. And if you haven't been watching, my main goal has been to eventually have sort of a bed or sort of a carpet of chamomile with some flowers around the border. This is dwarf chamomile, so it never gets very big, but it looks like some of them have actually started taking root and are doing pretty good, I think. Pretty healthy, bushing out a little bit. And considering when I planted them with just a bare root system, I think they've bounced back pretty well. My dill has gone to seed. I think these flowers are so pretty, as delicate as they are. And this here is my Indian wood oats that I grew from seed. They're native to the area. And I planted 3 or 4 together, and they're starting to bush out a little bit. There's another bunch there, and then the one I planted with only 2. I think if I ever plant these again, which I suspect I won't need to, I will probably plant them in sets so they can bush out nicely. But even the one that I planted only 2 of seems to be doing pretty good. It looks like well, that looks like grass. All right, now let's check on the tomatoes. Before I left, I had, and I still have, several seedlings that I just never got planted up. I was going to give some away. The person who wanted them didn't want them. So 2 of them are porco tomatoes, which I wanted to grow at least 1 of. So before I left, I made a mix of leaf compost, Coast of Maine compost, peat moss, perlite, and some earthworm castings, plus the rice hulls on top for a porco plant. And I had run out of bamboo and other poles, so I just stuck, because I don't want this down on the ground, I just stuck one of these poles there to trellis it against that, which I will do sometime soon. I would say the porco plant has probably grown. It was probably about this height. Probably about that right there when I left. In fact, nope, you are not gonna, no offshoots today. So the porco plant seems to be doing well. I have fruit bearing on one of those plants, and I think it's a cherry tomato plant. So I still have 2 buckets left, 3 actually. So I may plant up those tomatoes, but as you can see, I'm running out of space. So that means I'm going to start putting them on my driveway. Oh my gosh, I will make a space. One of the big differences from when I left, besides the fact that the tomatoes have gotten much bigger. This is the Roma tomatoes. And on the pear tomatoes, I think they're getting pretty close to the size they're going to be before they start turning colors. So that makes me pretty happy. Got some more babies up here. And let's see, over here we have the Abe Lincoln tomato is also producing babies. I really, really hope we don't get the rot that happens on them when they don't get enough calcium. And this plant looks healthy. It had yellowing and I fed it some fertilizer before I left. But this plant, which is a this Roma tomato plant. Now I will double check this before I post this video, but I believe the yellow leaves are a sign of nitrogen deficiency. I watered it this morning, but I am going to remove these branches. They're lower level anyway, but I think I need to bring some fertilizer out today or tomorrow and fertilize all the plants that have the yellowing. This tomato plant, out of all the ones I have, has it the worst, and it's possible that when I was potting it up, I may not have given it all the nutrients I put in the other ones. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between this and the others, but I do know that it has this yellowing, and I read somewhere that means that the leaves are giving nutrients to the rest of the plant to survive. So overall, the tomato plants are doing pretty well. They definitely have this curling thing going on. They did this for me last year. All of my tomato plants had some curl. And we do have a very windy area. Extreme heat can happen here. But in my mind, as long as the plants keep producing fruit and seem healthy, then I'm not going to worry about it. Because last year, everything turned out okay in the end. Here's the cherry tomatoes. Woohoo! So there's our tomato bed. Next up are my 2 beds that have the peppers and eggplants, as well as a few other things. This is the, oh guys, look. The pink tongue eggplant has its first flower. Yay! Oh my gosh, it has little prickles on it. I didn't know about that one. And it looks like there's some other buds forming too. Yay! This is the Japanese Nagasaki long plant. Looks like it's not quite forming buds yet, but the leaves look healthy. We have some vining happening with our Christmas lima beans. Yay, vine, my friends, vine. And the other peppers are all looking pretty happy. Let's see, this is a sweet banana that I got, I think from a box store or a farmer's market. I can't remember which. I think box store. Those are bananas, plants I grew from seed using winter sowing process. If you recall, they were really damaged by slugs. So I'm pretty thrilled to see flowers on them already. The fish peppers plant I got is doing well, as are the jalapeno plants. These are all ones I grew from seed. This plant, let's see, this is one I bought. This is going to be a purple bell pepper plant. Looks like it's starting to form buds. And this was my one sweet bell pepper plant that I grew from seed that was really struggling when I left, or was very small when I left, and it looks like it might do pretty well. Here's the yarrow that I planted here, and I think it's lovage. I have to double check the name of this thing. I got one pea out of my pea plant that my snack pea. One thing I've been fully surprised about is that we're almost to summer and I still have pansies growing. That just blows my mind. The other pepper and eggplant bed, which this week I'm going to plant green beans here, is also doing amazing. This is the poinsettia one. This is the one that'll have the beautiful sort of decorative small peppers. And our Jimmy Nardello peppers are doing well. And this one is already flowering. The mystery pepper I got from the Seedling exchange. We still don't know what it is, but it is pushing out nicely. I did top most of these before I planted them. Not all of them though, because some of them were so damaged. This is the poblano peppers. This guy, this big one, look how nicely that is branching out. That is another poblano pepper. That is from winter sowing, and I pinched it off right there, and look how it branched out. This is my Sugar Rush peach hot pepper. The cone flowers are doing well, and these are some volunteer zinnias, I believe, from last year's garden. This is also an eggplant. As for this bed, while I was gone, the borage fell over, as it is wont to do when it gets really tall, and it looks like it's sort of shading out my echinacea, or I can't remember what these plants were, but there's some flowers down there that it's shading out. So I'm going to trim it back. Coxcomb flower heads are developing wonderfully. This one had also fallen down like this across the path, so I've sort of propped it up against this. I'm probably going to bind it to this a little bit to give it some support. I have found that coxcomb usually needs some support, especially in this windy area. And further back, ignoring the weeds, the cleome are flowering beautifully. I need to research more, but I think I'm getting close to harvesting time for the garlic. I've heard that when the bases for hardneck garlic, when the bases start getting dark, it's time to pull or start sort of dying off. So I might just pull one out to test it and see how it's doing. I purposely did not water these this morning. I watered the cleomes in the back, but I did not water the garlic because it's been a few days since it rained. It's threatening to rain today, but if it doesn't rain anymore, it might have been enough time for the soil to dry up. I might pull back the leaf mulch from around the garlic to give it a little more space to dry. The single seed challenge eggplant, it looks like I need to prune back the bottom of the leaves there, but it is probably twice as tall as the ones that I have in the beds. I'm not sure exactly why, possibly because it just doesn't have to compete for root space or has more depth. And as I expected, we have jalapeno. I'm guessing the reason they're dark is because these started forming indoors and maybe the sun is too much for them. I don't know. What do you all think? As you can see, I trellised up the branch for this pepper to give it more ability to not break. All right, now to the flower bed. As you can see, I am running out of walking space. I have moved the lavender and rosemary out to here, and I am most likely going to take a few of these tomato plants and put them here on the and also here in the driveway, so that I have more walking space and the tomatoes don't fight for, you know, having enough air circulation. But let's walk through it anyway. So one of the plants I was most concerned about when I left was the calendula, because this bed, they compete for a lot of space. And when I came in, all of the flowers kind of looked like this last night. I watered it with a bucket of water I had sitting around, as well as the water that was left in here from before I left. And it looks like it's rebounded, and then I just need to pluck the tops of these. These are probably too far gone to use for, although I don't know, it feels very, I don't know. So that also they continue to flower. But overall, they did pretty good. The Indian blanket flowers, these were definitely not meant to be in a container in terms of how tall they get. But that's okay. I didn't know before I started before I had to switch to container garden that I would need to. They really are beautiful. And they're sort of leaning out this way and this way. As I expected, the Tulsi Holy Basil is taking over this pot, but we are getting a little flower head forming on the single coral coxcomb, king coral coxcomb. Here's the sage plants. Yeah, see, it's growing everywhere. It's looking really beautiful. And the salvia are all in full bloom, as is our bee balm. The bee balm has kind of gone wherever it wants, but giving it fertilizer right before I left really helped it, I think, because as you see these yellowing leaves, this was before I gave it fertilizer. Look how healthy the leaves up here look. And the flower itself. The flower itself is so pretty. I think bee balm is such a cool flower. Our red zinnias are, they've tripled in number. The catnip is starting to go to flower. And someone mentioned I need to prune back the herbs. I will definitely do that. The lemon balm needs to be pruned back, meaning I take some inside and dry it, which I love to do. Before I started the video, I did trim out the basil. There's some of the leaves. It was starting to get diseased leaves. I took off the tops. Some of them are starting to go to flower. I'm going to seed. And I don't want them to go to seed yet. The lemon basil, is that a cucumber beetle? Well, you're not getting my cucumbers. The lemon basil has doubled in height. That is a very full container garden, which is becoming container forest very fast. Oh, and I think for the marigolds, these giant marigolds, this is how they end up looking, with these little blossoms on the outside and then sort of this central head. It's kind of cool looking. It's definitely different, tapping the water out of it so it won't get rot. I've heard they can rot. This was the one before I left, and maybe I'll pop that head off. But these are pretty big. I mean, look at the size of my hands. Oh, I can smell. Some people say marigolds smell bad. I actually like the smell of them. And the head on my king coral coxcomb is developing. Oh, it's so pretty. So, so, so pretty. The cabbages seem to be doing well. And the cucumber plants, which I did not remove 2 of them, but I think it's okay because they seem to be taking, you can see it started attaching there, right there, to the pole. And hopefully I'm starting to see some flower buds form in there. And in the backyard, sunflower looks like it's starting to form a head. This mammoth sunflower is almost at the height of the fence. And it looks like the sugar snap peas, as I suspected, are at the end of their life. They got some sort of mildewy thing on them. And I didn't harvest enough of them before I left, but I can always let them go to seed. Or, I mean, I think I cut some of them back, and as long as I took the string off of them, they were still edible. This morning I let my dogs out and I heard my part hound Lilu baying. They found a groundhog in my green bean patch. Look, it's eaten. You can see where it's trampled about, climbed in through here, forced its way out. They almost got it. I don't like, animals dying, but I don't mind the groundhogs being scared a little bit. Someone suggested that I should create a garden for the groundhogs next year, and I think I will. If they eat it down to the nub and destroy it, that's fine. It'll probably encourage them to reproduce more, but whatever. So I think maybe I'll make this their bed next year, and I'm not going to worry about the green beans in here this year. I'm going to grow some in the front yard. Obviously, if they want in, they're going to find a way, and I just don't have the time to come up with a better fencing system for this year. So I'm going to harvest what I can of the peas, put the rest of this in the compost, and kind of let this bed become what it wants to, with probably the nasturtiums taking over kind of like they did last year. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check back in soon, as I hope to post one or more videos on my recent trip for a retreat and mini road trip. I look forward to sharing with you where I went. It's a very unique kind of place, what I saw, and my experience, and kind of how it's given me new ideas for this, what to do with this channel as well. So I hope you keep an eye out. And if you aren't already a subscriber, please consider doing so. And make sure you have the alarm set, the bell set, so you get alerts when I post new content like this video that's coming up. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. And otherwise, I'll see you next time.